The Liberals are imposing an import tariff on drywall destined for Western Canada. Now, there's some history to this story, so let me go back a little and explain. A Canadian drywall company called Certainteed Gypsum Canada launched a complaint earlier this year with the Canadian Border Services Agency complaining about cheaper American drywall being what the company called dumped into Western Canada and thus hurting their market share. So in response to this complaint and to stop this so-called dumping, the Liberals are imposing a tax on American drywall coming into Western Canada or any place west of the Manitoba-Ontario border. And Liberals, being Liberals, they just did it without thinking, because that's the Liberal way. Remember, the Liberals didn't have to impose any tariff here whatsoever, but they did it anyway without considering or caring about the impact of this decision. The Liberals are protecting this one Canadian company from American competition at the expense of Canada's hardest hit city. And Conservative MP for Fort McMurray Cold Lake, David Yerdiga, has had enough of the Liberals putting a tax on the rebuild of his community. Just watch.
Last week, residents who lost their homes in Fort McMurray wildfires were shocked to learn that rebuilding their homes is going to cost a lot more. A recent Liberal decision to put a 276% tax on drywall will raise the cost of a home rebuilt in Fort McMurray by thousands of dollars. When will the Liberals reverse this short-sighted decision and quit punishing Fort McMurray residents who have already suffered enough?
Fort Mac, already hit hard by the drop in oil prices, the terrible NDP policies, the massive wildfire, and then flooding, are having what amounts to an exorbitant Liberal tax placed on every piece of drywall headed into their community. These people need to rebuild their lives, and the Liberals are putting up barriers to it. It's despicable. And even worse, this whole tariff goes right into the Liberal coffers. The Liberals are actually making money on the devastation and tragedy Fort McMurray families have lived through this year. It's sickening. This is disaster profiteering of the worst sort. Just like stores who jack up the price on bottled water and candles when a hurricane hits. The entire world watched as residents of Fort McMurray raced through flames and ash to escape the fire. In the aftermath, the world saw entire neighborhoods burned right to the ground. The world also saw us all come together to help and house the evacuees. We were all proud to be Albertan and Canadian then. Now the world will see how our own federal government will try to line the government's pockets with tariff money on the rebuild of this community. And I'm ashamed of it. Don't kid yourself. There is a subset of the Liberal Party who think those uppity Westerners need to be put back in their place after a decade of being in charge. This is just the sort of humility they think us Westerners deserve, having to beg to rebuild our lives. Now, if the Liberals want to protect Canadian companies and stop other companies from dumping their products into Canada, they can lead the charge by putting a tariff on every barrel of Venezuelan oil coming into Canada. But they won't. In the meantime, the Liberals need to repeal this tax and let Fort McMurray pull itself back up the way it always has. Hundreds of Fort McMurrayites are still out of their homes, and those out-of-touch Liberals decided now was the time to add a tariff that will increase the cost of one necessary construction supply by 276%. This all begs the question, do these Eastern-centric, Alberta-hating Liberals even want Fort McMurray to rebuild? For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. You can learn more about how bad left-wing policies are hurting Alberta towns like Fort McMurray, Hanna, and Wabamun in my best-selling book, The Destroyers. Click the link below to download your copy.